Good morning, grade 5s, or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this video. This is your teacher, Mr. McMurdo, and this is another review video which you can use to help you prepare for your Unit 1 math test. This video will be delving into the topic of unsquaring a number, or another way of putting it is finding the square root of a number. Now remember, a square root is a number which you can multiply by itself to give you a square number. So these two numbers that I've given you, 625 and 361, are both square numbers. And I'm asking you to use the squeeze method to find the square root of these two numbers. Now you can do the random method where you just select the number and multiply it by itself until you can find the number or the square root of these two numbers. The squeeze method is a much easier and more efficient way to discover the square root of these two numbers. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do the square root of 625 and 361 using the squeeze method. Now remember, the squeeze method is a method in which you need to develop or find a low bound and an upper bound so that you can squeeze the square root out of the number. Now remember, you want to use multiples of 10 to develop your upper and lower bound. So you can go 10 times 10, which is 100. Well, you could use that as a lower bound, but it's not really that close to 625. So then we go up by a multiple of 10. Well, 20 times 20 is equal to 400. That seems like it's pretty good. That's really close to 625. And if we went up to the next one, it would be 900. 30 times 30 is 900. Well, that is too high. So now we can look at these two multiplication expressions here and here, and we can see that 400 can be our low bound, and 30 times 30 can be our higher bound. Now that you've found your two bounds, what you're going to do is you're going to draw a number line and then use that number line to discover what the square root of 625 is. So your lower bound is going to be 20, which is equal to 20 times 20, which is equal to 400. And your upper bound is going to be 30, which is equal to 30 times 30, which is equal to 900. Now your answer is going to fall somewhere along this number line. It could be 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and those are all the possible answers. The square root of 625 could be any one of those numbers between 20 and 30. Now remember, I showed you a method in which you can discover which number is the square root without having to multiply them. You can multiply each one by itself until you come to the answer, but that would be time consuming, and plus that leaves rooms for error, because you could end up making a multiplication error or a calculation error. So the method that I showed you was that you can take the last digit of your answers and multiply it by itself. And if that product is the same as the last digit in the square number, then you know that that number is the square root of the square number. So for example, 21 ends in the digit 1. So you're going to go 1 times 1. Well, 1 times 1 is 1, which isn't the same as 5. Let's try 2. Well, 2 times 2 is equal to 4. 4 is not the same as 5. Then we do 3 times 3. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, so it's not 23. 4 times 4 is 16, which is not the same as 5. Well, 5 times 5 is equal to 25. That ends in the same number as our square number here. And if you go 6 times 6, well, 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 7 is 49. 8 times 8 is 64, and 9 times 9 is 81. So that leaves us with one possible answer. 25 is the square root of 625. Now, 25 is the square root of 625 because 25 is the square root of 625 because 25 times 25 is equal to 625. Okay, now let's go over to the next one. 361. Well, 361. So the first thing we need to do is develop our lower bound and our upper bound. Well, 10 times 10 is equal to 100. 20 times 20 is equal to 400. 100 is below 361. 400 is above 361. So 10 and 20 will be our two bounds. So 10 times 10 is equal to 100, and 20 times 20 is equal to 400. And that gives us our two bounds for the square number of 361. And once again, what we're going to do is we're going to write down the numbers between 10 and 20. So we have 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. We're going to take the last digit of each of these numbers and multiply it by itself. Well, 1 times 1 is 1. So 11 may be a possible answer, but there is another number with a digit when multiplied by itself is also equal to 1. 9 times 9 is equal to 81. Both of these end in 1. So now what we need to do is we need to take our square number and look at it and assess whether or not 361 is closer to this side, which is equal to 100, or closer to this side, which is equal to 400. Well, 361 is much closer to 400, so we know our answer is 81 and not 1. So our answer is 19. 19 is the square root of 361 because 19 times 19 is equal to 361. Another way of writing it would be the square root of 361 is equal to 19. And that brings us to the end of this review video. I have just shown you how to use the squeeze method to find the square root of a number. And this method is great because it's much more efficient than the random method, and it allows you to find the square root of a number without having to use a calculator. I hope you enjoyed this, and please tune in to our final video on prime factorization. Thank you.